A phone salesperson is paid a minimum weekly salary and a commission for each phone sold, as shown in the table. Confirm that the relationship is linear and give the constant rate of change and the initial value. So the first two things that we are asked to do, confirm the relationship is linear and give the constant rate of change, go together. Because in order for something to be linear, it must have a constant rate of change. So to answer the first question, is it linear? We have to answer the second question, is the rate of change constant? Now, what that means is, are we given the same income for each phone that is sold? So as we go from 10 phones to 20 phones, how much are we paid? And is that the same pay as we go from 20 to 30 phones and from 30 to 40? So what we need to know is our change in income compared to our change in the number of phones sold constant from 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and 30 to 40. So we have to do a handful of separate problems, and all of the problems are the same. The problems are always, what is the change in income compared to the change in phones sold? And we're going to create a ratio of change in income to change in phones sold, and then just check and see, are those ratios, and there are three of them here, are those ratios the same? Okay, so let's look at our first set of data that we have here. That is these two data points. When we sold 10 phones, we made $480. When we sold 20 phones, we made $630. What was the rate at which we were paid for those 10 phones? So first, what was our change in income? Well, we were at $480. We jumped up to $630. How much extra money did we get? Well, that's pretty easy to do. We were at $630 after we sold the phones. We started at $480. That is a difference of $150. We made 150 bucks from 480 to 630. Now, $150 is what we got for selling all of those phones. Well, what was that? What was the change in the phones sold? Well, we ended having sold 20 phones. We started having sold 10 phones, and of course, 20 minus 10 is 10. So we sold 10 phones and we made $150. What is that ratio? What is the ratio of dollars to phones? In other words, how much money did we get per phone? Well, this is a simple division problem. If it's $150 for 10 phones, then it would be $15 per phone. So that was our rate of change for those 10 phones. To know if it's linear, we have to know, is that the same rate of change for 20 to 30 phones and from 30 to 40 phones? Were we paid $15 a phone every single time? Is it constant? So let's look at our next pair. Were we also paid $15 per phone when we went from 20 phones to 30 phones? The math here is the same. We had $780 minus $630. 780 minus 630 is $150. And from 20 phones to 30 phones is again 10 phones sold. 30 minus 20, an increase of 10 phones. And as we learned on the last problem, 150 divided by 10 is 15. So we got $15 per phone again. Constant rate of change still. We need to do this one more time to verify that the rate of change is constant, and that is with our last pair here, and that is from 30 phones to 40 phones. From 30 to 40 phones, was that rate of change constant? Okay, so we went from $780 to $930. So 930 minus 780 is $150. And from 40 phones to 30 phones is 10 phones. So that is also $15 per phone. So doing this math, has answered the first two parts of this question for us. If we go back up to the problem, it said, confirm that the relationship is linear and give the constant rate of change. We've done both of those things. By doing these three sets of math problems, we have said the relationship is linear. The relationship is linear. And how do we know it's linear? Because it has a constant rate of change. So the relationship is linear because it has a constant rate of change. It has a constant rate of change. And what is that constant rate of change? $15 per phone. $15 per phone. Great. Now, the last part of the question said for us to find the initial value. What does that mean? Well, if we're paid $15 per phone, I know that my weekly income is not just based on how many phones I sell. And the reason I know it's not is because when I sold 10 phones, I made $480. And 10 phones at $15 per phone is not $480. That's way less than $480. So what that tells me is I must be getting paid a certain amount of money even if I don't sell any phones at all. Even if I have a bad week and I don't sell anything, they're paying me something. And that something that they're paying me, that is the initial value. The initial value is what do you get if you sell nothing? And the easiest way to figure that out is to figure out of that $480, how much of it came from phones? Well, that's not too bad. I sold 10 phones and we just figured out that I get paid $15 per phone. So if I sold 10 phones and I get paid $15 each, what's 10 times $15? That's $150. So if I just sold those 10 phones, I should have been paid $150, but I wasn't. I was paid $480. So how much more was I paid? That's also a pretty easy math problem. I was paid $480. $150 of that was from the 10 phones that I sold, which means $330 is the initial amount. And what does the initial amount mean in this problem? The initial amount is how much I get paid even if I don't sell any phones at all. If it's a bad week and nobody's buying phones, I'm not working for free. I'm not just hanging out at the cell phone shop. They still pay me. I just don't get paid as much as if I had sold phones. This is what's called working on commission. You get paid a little bit just for showing up and being in the store, but then every time you sell something, you get paid a little bit more.